Each and every one of us has a tiger within our bodies. However, they never really tell us what kind of tiger is residing inside.
It's gonna be a bad idea.
However, humans are known for their impeccable survival instincts, so if you ever happen to be put in a room with a monster, then that's when they let out the real beast. It's hard to keep a track of real-life instances for this, so it makes more sense to visit our trusted form of media, the big screen. Yeah, that's right. Today, the TV Regent presents the top 25 man vs. beast scenes in the movies. Once a monster hunter, always a monster hunter. That's Mila Jovovich for you, and her relationship with Paul W.S. Anderson continues with the unironically named Monster Hunter from 2020. Well, they're married as well, but that's a whole other kind of hunting if you know what I mean.
Yeah, boy.
Anyway, back to the task at hand. Artemis and her crew face their toughest challenge yet when they come across a Rathalos, which is supposed to be some kind of wyvern, but for the sake of convenience, I'm just going to refer to it as a dragon. The initial encounter most definitely doesn't go as planned, with Artemis taking a hit and being sent back to her world. But that's when the real fun begins, as the fire-breathing dragon makes his way through the same portal as well. The action is nicely executed with some amazing CGI, which made the monster look very threatening. What I don't get is that this monster can be taken down with fire, whereas that's supposed to be a boon for dragons, isn't it? Well, I suppose that's why they call it a wyvern in the first place. So Artemis does land a critical hit, but you've got to understand that the studio got the legendary Tony Jaa in the film as well, so it was essential for him to deliver a brutal blow. Other than this epic showdown, there isn't much to take back home, which is really disappointing because just look at the formula. Mila Jovovich, Paul Anderson, and a film adaptation of a game with monsters in it. This was supposed to be Resident Evil Reborn. Usually when you see a Godzilla scene, it never ends up with his face exploding in the middle of the ocean. Well, that happens in Godzilla -1, and it's safe to say that this movie had a lot more artistic impact than any of the commercial juggernauts that have spawned from this legacy IP. Seeing Goichi finally redeeming himself and getting over his survivor's guilt was the most full circle moment we've seen in a while. Defeating Godzilla when the chips were down sure made the scene all the more entertaining, and it goes to show that you can make a masterpiece even on a budget as low as $15 million today. Please remember that Godzilla was defeated not because of a trigger monster or an army of aliens. He was defeated by people who wanted to see a better tomorrow for their families, people who worked together and managed to overcome their greatest fear. People who make us care about them even though they're just characters in a movie. See, this is what the other Godzilla films miss. Of course, the reason this scene is here is because of how amazing it looked when a plane literally crashes into the King of the Monsters' mouth. Plus, the timing was perfect because the atomic breath he couldn't release externally ended up blowing him to bits internally. Oh man, this was probably one of the most badass scenes kids from the 90s got treated to while growing up. Watching Harry Potter from that era is an experience that you simply can't explain in words, and the Chamber of Secrets kind of set us up for the various obstacles that Voldemort would present to the boy who lived. Man, the scene with the Basilisk was freaking epic to say the least. We got to see Harry face off against a proper monster, and the structure of the scene was so perfect that the ending hit my sweet spot the right way. No, not that way, you sick freaks. But yeah, the thrill and excitement of watching our favourite wizard emerge victorious can never be replicated, especially in today's world where no Hollywood franchise is really that memorable. Also, if you notice, it was the sword of Gryffindor that killed both of Voldemort's snakes, the Basilisk and Nagini. Yes, I know technically the Basilisk belongs to Salazar Slytherin, but Riddle's the one controlling it, right? And the line sounded cool, so I said it, okay? Also, I'm glad that Harry only had to deal with Voldemort's giant snake and not Drake's. That definitely wouldn't have been a movie for kids. Or any kind of sane human being for that matter. This movie has been widely regarded as the biggest flop of all time, but then Amazon released Rings of Power and the MCU released the Marvels, so at least that's one record John Carter won't have to hold on to for too long. Box office numbers aside, I want to talk about a pretty cool scene where John takes on the might of two massive white apes from Barsoom. Honestly, I didn't even know if I should call these things ape because what the heck are those faces? This is straight out of a nightmare, and the fact that John was literally only focusing on defeating them rather than running for his life will remain an S-tier display of courage. Not just that, bro also had to deal with his foot being chained to a rock, which made the whole fight that much more intense. It's not a very detailed scene, but the reason I've included it is because of the difficulty level. There's also that bonus towards the end after John takes down both of the apes in impressive fashion. He challenges Tal Harjas to a battle even though he's dripping blue blood, and goes on to win that fight in 1 business second. Yeah, if that doesn't scream alpha male to you, then I don't know what will. Well, it looks like the snakes are going to be taking up the first few moments of this list, as we now have those monstrous beasts from 2016's Gods of Egypt. Yeah, I do want to mention the goddesses that were controlling them as well, but they don't really count as monsters, so I'll just focus on Beck, Horus, and Hathor coming together to take all of their opponents down. Now, the action is heavy when you look at how they take down the white snake, because you get to see it wreaking havoc the whole time. I mean, the thing is breathing fire, for crying out loud. Listen, I know you're up against Jaime Lannister, but breathing fire is for the dragons in Game of Thrones, not some giant cobra with an attitude problem. But yeah, the way it meets its end is pretty basic, considering it just falls off a cliff. The second snake, though, is taken down in a much more brutal manner. Sure, Hathor takes out a spear that's been bothering the beast, but for that to be enough to convince it to burn itself alive was deadly to watch. Imagine the state of the goddess sitting atop the snake. She must have been like, now I'll show them the real power of a goddess, only to be humiliated soon after, without even a tiny bit of acknowledgement.
Too bad you can no longer fly.
Only time you can call Cyclops a good guy is in the X-Men universe, and even then, he's pretty much a simp. The other times, Cyclops are freakishly strong monsters that you definitely don't want to mess around with, unless your name happens to be Perseus. This scene from Wrath of the Titans is actually one of the best sequences featuring Cyclops monsters. They really nailed the speed and feel of these giants. They feel big and powerful, yet fast enough to remain intimidating, unlike a lot of other movies that make their giants extremely slow. I also like that the Cyclops spoke an entirely different language while he was trying to hunt the crew members. They could have easily had these monsters speak English or not even speak at all. However, by having them speak in a distinct language lets us know that these Cyclops aren't mindless monsters. Instead, they have a language of their own that sounds quite complex and isn't just a bunch of grunts and babble.
Aside.
Oh yeah, and the way Perseus makes one of those Cyclops fall into his log trap was pretty cool, albeit a bit chaotic. Plus, I'm not sure if one log attack is enough to end these beasts.
You coming?
Glad you're hanging in there.
I thought I'd give him an eyeful.
Let me tell you something. There's only one way off of this planet, baby, and that's through me.
If you ever have a massive bug problem, don't waste your money on those overpriced pest control guys. Just tell the men in black that alien insects are invading your home and you got yourself a free cleanup. The final battle in the OG MIB film will forever remain the best of the lot because even though the sequel was decent, the series hasn't quite lived up to its reputation since this classic. Agents J and K do their best to take out Edgar the Bug, but if you're up against a cockroach that big, you need a whole lot of heart to just stand there and not run away. K does one better, by literally sacrificing himself, getting eaten up by the alien bug so that he could retrieve his gun. Thank God he blew the damn thing up because I was beginning to wonder if he was even going to make it. The real hero here though is Will Smith, which is a hard thing to say these days, isn't it? The way he teased that giant roach by killing the smaller roaches was hilarious. Was that your auntie? Still cracks me up to this day, and it just goes on to prove that you can never top an OG.
I'm sorry. Was that your auntie?
Also, just look at the CGI here. Where the heck have all of these visual effects artists gone? Because I sure as heck don't see them in any modern media.
Need to ease up out my face for something bad happened to you. Too late.
You know, people keep talking about how sharks are supposed to be smart and stuff, but the one in Jaws 2, it doesn't seem to fit that bill. I mean, why else would it blatantly swim into a trap and get electrocuted to death? Well, I suppose we shouldn't be holding monsters to a high standard because we want to get rid of them anyway, don't we? The finale to the Jaws sequel saw Chief Brody carefully and tactfully luring the killer shark towards him, only to have it bite an underwater power cable and electrocute itself in the most diabolical way possible. I swear, man, this death was actually super violent, and the only reason we don't take it that seriously is because the victim is an animatronic shark. Having said that, I do love how the Chief always has a badass one-liner before he kills a shark. It's almost as if he's made it part of his brand. But yeah, that dude has balls of steel. I wonder how he can float so easily with them. Well, it looks like we have ourselves another shark entry, wherein said shark is led to yet another obvious trap, but he still goes for it anyway. Only difference here is that the dude taking his life is a bald man. Seriously though, Jason Statham's Jonas Taylor has got to have the strongest plot armor in cinematic history. Bro went from being unable to pick up the helicopter wing, to waving it around and splashing water with it, to stabilizing a freaking megalodon on it. Yeah, at this point, I think it's safe to say that Statham is the new Chuck Norris, at least when it comes to the sea. I do like the detailing on the Meg's death, especially the way they show its eye going out as a clear indicator that all is well now. Also, Jonas did all the other sharks a huge favour here. Not only did he take the life of a potential predator, he's also given them a nice cannibalistic meal to enjoy. You can call yourself a hero all you want. The only way I'm gonna believe that is if you save the dog. Yeah, most movies always show the poor little doggos getting gobbled up by monsters as a sacrifice for the pesky humans to make it out alive. But luckily in this case, we get to see Dylan O'Brien walking the walk and saving his good boy from a giant freaking centipede. Like, damn man, why is it so big? Even Drake would be scared of such a long monster. Anyway, the build up to the scene is pretty intense, with the centipede wrapping itself around the doggo's hiding spot, which hilariously happens to be a big duck statue. Luckily for us, Dylan finally grows a pair and calls back to what his mom told him, after which he flawlessly ends the giant monster.
You can survive this. I love you. I love you.
You want to know something really creepy though? Giant centipedes actually did exist in the past. We're just lucky we don't share the same timeline as them.
Oh God, those aren't gonna hit us, are they? Oh my God, they hit it! They just hit it right now! You guys, they just hit it! They hit it with...
Usually, whenever the army comes to the rescue, we're supposed to be relieved and overjoyed that everyone is now safe. The only problem here is that the army is up against freaking Clover from Cloverfield. That monster doesn't know when to give it a rest, and this battle against the army only drives that point further. You can clearly see that the beast isn't really getting affected by the firepower being directed towards it, and it doesn't matter how many tanks you send, that monster ain't gonna back down. The POV angle adds a refreshing take on how we view such scenes, because the monster's face is only shown for maybe a second or two, but you still realise that you're in the middle of a serious mess now. The panic and anxiety shown by Hud and his buds complement the high-stakes situation as well. Man, where's the Hulk when you need him to one-punch a giant monster?
Is that a monkey?
If you see King freaking Kong standing in front of you, striking one of the most epic and fearsome poses you've ever seen, I don't think your first reaction should be, is that a monkey? Maybe something along the lines of, let's get the heck out of here now would be a better response. Of course, humans seem to forget that common sense is a thing in such situations, so what do? They attack the giant monster and get crushed to pieces as a result of it.
What the hell is that? I don't know!
My favourite moment from this scene is when King Kong stands up backlit by the sun. He looks so foreboding and imposing. Also, keeping in mind that he's just a teenager in this scene. He's a lot bigger when he takes on Godzilla, so that in itself is a flex. I know Samuel L. Jackson strikes a super badass pose where he angrily stares at Kong in the middle of all the destruction around him, but come on bro, even you don't stand a chance against a giant gorilla. If Ellen Ripley wasn't amongst your most badass female characters of all time after 1979's Alien, then I'm sure the sequel would have changed your mind. The final battle between Ripley and the Alien Queen was one of the top action sequences of the 80s. And yes, this includes all the scenes with men as well. It's such a legendary moment, especially with the iconic line Ripley blurts out to get the Alien Queen's attention.
Get away from her, you bitch!
The fight in itself was pretty cool too, with Ripley's semi-Jaeger doing the best it could against an oversized xenomorph. Yeah, I'm sure the company that made this thing didn't expect it would be used in such a battle, but hey, imagine the branding benefits of flexing your product in a battle against an extraterrestrial being. Is it really a list of monsters versus humans if I didn't include Gandalf's most iconic scene from the Lord of the Rings franchise? The battle against Balrog may not have been a long one, but it was definitely an impactful moment that shaped up this film trilogy in its quest to become the greatest of all time. The "you shall not pass" line still sends shivers down my spine no matter how many times I watch it, which is exactly why it keeps finding itself somewhere higher up on the ranks on TV Regent videos. There's not much to say that hasn't already been said about this, so I'll just mention that Sir Ian McKellen totally won us over with the valor and courage he displayed against a monster that could have totally ruined the grand plan. I did include the questionable sequel earlier, so it was obvious that the OG would land at a much higher spot. Chief Brody taking out the first ever shark from the Jaws franchise will forever remain an iconic moment for all of cinema's history books. The suspense and anxiety that take over your mind as Brody keeps shooting at the great white shark, hoping to blow the canister, is amazing filmmaking, and it's no surprise that Steven Spielberg managed to create such an unforgettable moment. Hey, there's something I just realised actually. Even though Quint was gone and Hooper was trapped on the seabed, all three men still helped out take the shark together. It was Quint's rifle, Hooper's oxygen tank, and Brody's aim that all came together to kill the shark. See, this is what Martin Scorsese would call cinema.
Count to 5. 1, 2.
It's kind of hard to associate the word love with monster, but then again, we've also got darlings like James Sullivan and Mike Wazowski. However, that sentiment doesn't apply to the Queen Sand Gobbler, who clearly just wanted to get an afternoon snack in Joel and his little good boy. The monster design on this thing is unique, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what the inspiration was behind it. Is it a maggot? I mean, is it a sandworm? I don't know. Either way, the chase scene was excellently directed, and we're treated to a super tense moment when Joel must do his best to keep his doggo from barking. He does succeed at first, but I gotta say, that good boy sure likes to attract attention, and the gobbler wastes no time in attacking the duo again. Luckily, Joel thinks on his feet and blows the queen up in an amazingly shot sequence. Ugh, I wonder what the insides of that thing would have smelt like. Man, they really wasted an awesome monster in this one. The Kraken is an absolute beast, and the fact that the entire movie was building up to its eventual arrival really got everyone hyped AF. Now, while its eventual treatment might have left fans a bit divided, its entrance was simply mwah. The creature design was terrifying, and its opening roar is probably as good as a money shot is ever gonna get. In a monster movie, of course. I mean, I really can't say the same about other feature films. The sheer presence of the beast is probably enough to make anyone piss their pants, so I can only imagine how Andromeda would have been feeling at the time. Luckily, her knight in not-so-shining armour arrives and Perseus takes down the ginormous monster simply by making him look into Medusa's eyes. Yep, that's all it took to take down a legendary creature that's probably taller than the Empire State Building. But I will give credit to the way they showed the Kraken turning to stone. It's very neatly animated. Mila Jovovich sure has a thing for taking down massively overpowered monsters. Here she plays the role of Captain Artemis, who teams up with her buddy Hunter to take down a very dangerous Diablos. He kinda looks like one of those horned demons from hell, and the desert setting even suits his overall vibe. Now you'd imagine that a bunch of puny humans wouldn't stand a chance against something like Diablos, but you should never underestimate the survivor of the Resident Evil film franchise. After a barrage of bullets do nothing to the creature, Hunter realizes that he's got to semi-sacrifice himself, so he lands his sword on top of the monster's soft spot. This gives Artemis the chance to activate her inner Alice, and she miraculously manages to land the final blow that kills the beast. Normally I'd say this kind of thing is ridiculous and unrealistic, but then again, so is a 50-foot tall demon goat monster.
Now, tell me, who are you?
It feels weird to see The Rock with hair, but hey, if anyone's going to play Hercules, it's gotta be Dwayne Johnson. And yeah, I saw the post-credit scene in Love and Thunder and I'm still standing by my words. Janie is going to have her head chopped off just like Ned Stark in Game of Thrones, and Ian McShane ain't having none of it. So he asks Hercules the all-important question: who are you? That's all it takes for the man of muscle to break free and save his damsel in distress, but then he's got to deal with 3 nasty wolves. Now this fight scene is mostly CGI, but the wolves still look menacing enough, and man, Hercules really shows them what he's made of.
I can deal with an ambitious man, he can be bought, but a man who wants nothing has no price.
No, seriously, even I felt bad for that last wolf getting its mouth ripped open without any mercy. Man, I sure hope Dwayne treats his bulldogs with a little more love than that. One of the most common fears is arachnophobia, and poor little Harry Potter had to face it in its worst possible form when he was just a little kid. After learning the truth about Hagrid's little incident with the Chamber of Secrets, Harry and Ron decide to bid farewell to the horrifyingly massive Aragog. This thing gave me serious nightmares when I was a kid too, and he wasn't even the scariest part of the scene. The spider monster summons his children to feast on some fresh meat, and luckily, Ron's psychotic flying car returns to save the day along with a very good boy in the back seat. What follows is a scary chase scene that's also hilarious in parts, and I for one was very glad to see the boys escaping this one in one piece. Fallen Kingdom did have a lot of issues, but I'd still argue it's got one of the best opening scenes of any monster movie. The night setting and background score make it seem as if we're dealing with a straight-up horror movie, and the Mosasaurus devouring the search crew was an awesomely shot moment. The best is yet to come though, and our very own Rexy terrorizes a clueless schmuck and chases him as an intense sequence as he gets to the chopper. The director even tricks us into thinking that the worst is behind us when the humans manage to escape T-Rex, but then the Mosasaurus jump scares everyone and adds a little dessert to the evening meal. Man, I really had my hopes up after watching this intro, but sometimes I feel like I should have just left the theatre once it was all over. I'm not sure if Gen Z kids would recognize this movie, but it's an absolute classic for millennials like yours truly. 1997's Anaconda was what gave birth to my fear of large snakes, and the final scene is testament to that claim. After the douchebag Paul ties up Terry and Danny as bait for the massive snake, he tries to capture it, but we all know how these kind of plans usually end up, don't we? The Anaconda devours him in an impressively shot POV that shows us the inside of its belly. That leaves the musicians turned actors to try and burn the snake alive without using any rap bars or reggaeton beats. Jennifer Lopez lures the snake with her booty, and Ice Cube whips up a nasty explosion to seemingly kill the monster. But of course, it makes its way back for one final jump scare. No need to worry though, because Danny's all up in his face and kills it once and for all. Bruh, I don't even know how much they pay the guys at National Geographic, but they definitely deserve a raise. The best thing about Jurassic World was the Indominus Rex, and its battle against the non-lethal ACU gave us a nice view of its many abilities. The clever girl chomps off her tracker and then camouflages herself to trick the clueless task force into walking straight into her trap. She gives them a classic case of peekaboo and then goes on to munch on all her opponents in a super cool looking montage of shots. Honestly though, this one's on Masrani, because who the hell sends a team of non-lethals to take on a dinosaur that's bigger than the T-Rex? The Indominus might be a powerful beast, but she was given an unauthorized cheat code for this encounter. However, that doesn't take anything away from how awesome this scene is. Now, if you're a 20-foot tall lizard monster, I think it's safe to say that you don't need to land a sneak attack on a bunch of tiny humans, but the skull crawlers had other things in mind. After gobbling up poor old Bill, the creature prepares its next attack as the soldiers prepare their guns and Brie Larson prepares her camera. Bill's own camera alerts the team with flashing lights, and it was a nice touch to make the scene a little bit more tense and engaging. The battle has lots of cool moments, especially when Tom Hiddleston finally does something useful in the movie when he chops up some mini pterodactyls with Hank's katana. After an intense series of events, who would have thought that a simple lighter would have been enough to take the creepy crawly down?
I'm gonna make this thing bleed.
Never underestimate the power of a bold action hero. Well, at least that's what Jason Statham must be thinking when he decided to take on a centuries-old megalodon. He tricks the prehistoric shark with some evasive maneuvers and then slashes into its body to let out tons of blood. Maybe he should have asked first. Anyway, if that wasn't enough, he does the ballsiest thing I've ever seen as he pushes a spear into the beast's freaking eye. Of course, it's going to take more than that though to kill a 50-foot-long super shark, so he relies on the power of evolution, and it works. An entire army of sharks follow the trail of blood, and they assassinate their great ancestor with the power of hunger. Not only does it make for a visual gore fest, but it also adds a nice poetic touch to the finale. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you'll enjoy.